Oh, now it's like a second. Go fuckers, we are here. We're doing it.
Yeah.
Tom Overham, please tell me that we are live and unleashed on the fucking World Wide Webs.
Don't swear. You can take it off.
How's it going, fuckers? Fuck you, Tom Overham. Welcome to Mastering Music, Mastering Life. I'm Tony Jack the Bear Mance, and we are here at Deluxe Mastering Studios in Melbourne, Australia. And I'm really delighted to have as my guest Mr. John Course from Vicious Vinyl, Vicious Recordings, Vicious Publishing, Vicious Vishnu, fucking viciousness.
Just vicious.
Just,
hey?
you know, vicious, mate. Fucking, good to see you, mate.
Pleasure, mate.
How's it going?
Yeah, good. Like, I'm just sitting here perusing your toys.
Yeah. No, they're pretty good toys. Yeah, they're good toys. I just have to learn how to fucking operate them, and I'll do all right, mate. So mate, great to see you. And you just come back from Hawaii. You had a bit of a breakaway.
Had a great holiday, chilled out, back fresh, ready to go.
Yeah. But mate, well, I don't know how fresh are you? Like you were saying, what you landed, and pretty much as soon as you landed, did you have a gig to go?
The flight was delayed, so
that old party trick.
So
yeah.
we're supposed to get in at like 2:30 in the afternoon or something, and the flight got delayed more actually, because we landed at 7 and I had a gig at 8:30.
Right.
So I was like, gee, I better get a cracking move on, and then I played a club after that, and and I felt actually quite wide awake, so I went to 161 and listened to some music for a little while, and then went home and crashed.
Feel all right?
Yeah, I feel good. I mean, I kind of actually quite resilient, you know. I think you just get used to, when you've travelled a little bit, you get used to, I don't know, just adjusting.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, I'm sure I'll have that big sleep in tomorrow when the girlfriend's gone to work and I can just chill out. I'll just keep sleeping all day. Probably. No, I wouldn't sleep all day actually, but if I want to have a sleep in, catch up, you know, I can. And then back in the office on Tuesday.
You can do that. Beautiful, mate. So, anyway, mate, I was really happy that you said you come on down, because as we were saying before, mate, we've known each other for many years. Our paths have crossed, and this is the longest amount of time I've actually sat down with you one-on-one to have a chat. And I thought that's actually kind of cool in a way, because it just means that I always like these podcasts to be organic. I always like them to be like just and if I have someone I know I haven't met before, I find that really cool, because it's actually a real fucking conversation, and I don't prepare questions. I don't it's just having a chat, and because I'm still fascinated. I've always been fascinated by people who've done well, in any career, but particularly with music, because that's that's my world, and sort of what is it that fucking makes people's minds tick, and there's always a common denominators that you'll always find, but everyone's an individual anyway, and everyone's got a really different story and to tell, and and again, people might look at you as people may look at people that are successful. They have a profile, they have a business, they're a proven quantity, and I've often described it as like the iceberg. People just see the 10 or 15% above the waterline, and all the other stuff, which is the the disappointment and the losses of money and the almost going fucking broke and no food in the cupboard and self-doubt and
all that stuff's always there, isn't it?
And it's not really spoken about much, but and I think this is why it's important that I like people that can be honest about that sort of stuff, and it's great to talk about the successes and shit, but I think it's equally important, so. Because for me, my passion's kids, man. I want to reach out to kids, and I want to inspire kids, but them to hear from actual industry people who have done the hard yards. And look, let's take you. I mean, Vicious, as I remember, was a shed in a backyard in fucking.
It was, yeah.
In Frankston, yeah.
We were born and bred in Frankston, which it's not the most glamorous suburb of Melbourne, and
I'll tell you what, mate, the fucking view at Oliver's Hill isn't too fucking bad.
Well, it's kind of weird, because it's this mad demographic of kind of like, there's a big section of housing that's quite low income, and then there's another section of housing not far from that's, like you said, Oliver's Hill, Mount Eliza. And me and my friends, when we were growing up, when we started getting into music, and when I met the people that have been lifelong friends, we just kind of dug into the music and just moved in our own little circle of 3 or 4 people at a time. Didn't really know anything about what was going on in the city, just went up to Melbourne to buy music and started, obviously when we were old enough to go to clubs, that's when we started to hear what else was going on. But, you don't sit back there thinking, oh, I'm from Frankston, I can't do anything. You just do what you do.
Yeah.
And you have fun. And, we obviously, a few mates struck a chord around music. And I actually got into music through breakdancing, really, and hearing, scratching and...
Yeah, well, you're DMC, again, 1989. You're 16 when you won that, right? 15 or 16?
88 and 89, so I was a little bit older than 16, but not much,
I mean, your balls are barely dropped, and you won this fucking national competition where you just...
Well, I did win it nationally, to be fair. I won Victoria 2 years in a row, but I didn't win the national one. Would have been a nice experience, but Yeah,
but still, mate. I mean, how many people did you have to fucking wipe out even to win Victoria? I mean, you had to chew up a few people on the way.
But you didn't know what we didn't know that who we were competing against, and we were just these kids from out of town that no one knew really. The first time I did it, like I really think the kind of old school hip hop crew didn't know who this kid was.
Yeah.
When I went in the competition and I won it.
Yeah.
And they probably were like, how the hell did our guy not win this? But we were just, myself and Andy Van both went in it. We were both down in Frankston. I used to go around his place and practice on his decks because I didn't have any.
Yeah.
So we weren't kind of thinking, who we've got to compete against and what are they going to be like. We had literally no idea, The first bits of audio gear we bought because we saw a picture of Fatboy Slim with I think a 909, and we were like,
gotta have one.
Okay, if Fatboy Slim's got a 909, we need a 909 or cold cut or and then obviously the learning curve starts from there. But at the time, we were just, as I said, passionate people about this music we were getting into, and positive attitude about it, liked what we were doing, and yeah.
I think there's something to be said about the idea that when you don't know who your competition is, because you don't get caught in the trap of trying to compare yourself to other people or be intimidated by other people. It's just you doing your thing, and sometimes when they say like footy, just play a natural game, game.
Look, I think you got to. I don't think it matters what you do really. It's not about what other people can or can't do as well. It's just what you do. Your destiny is in your own hands to a certain extent. So it didn't really matter that there was. Obviously, you see other DJs do tricks, as a turntablist, and you'd be like, okay, I want to try and learn how to do that. But you kind of didn't. At the time, as I said, we didn't think about it more as a competitive thing. More just we wanted to learn it.
Yeah.
And I think we've, both myself and Andy and Colin Daniels was a part of that at the time. And I think we all had an attitude that we were just doing our thing.
Yeah.
And, I remember going to clubs early on and thinking, oh, it'd be great to DJ here, But it was never like something that we felt like, other people could push us out of the way or we had to beat any particular person. There's hundreds of clubs. There's, thousands of pieces of gear. There's thousands of records made.
Yeah.
You just got to get in the game,
Yeah.
And that was our mentality. It was just get in there, know.
It's different. It's a different era now. You're talking to my engineers, Tom, before.
Yeah.
Like it's like where do you see the biggest differences or the biggest differences are for when you were starting out trying to get a leg up as an unknown, and now a kid who wants to try and get a slot at a 161, for example.
Yeah. Look, I think fundamentally, in a way, it's still the same. From a scope of like, you've got to find the people who are making the decisions about these things. So if it's a promoter, it could be a promoter running a night and they've got nothing to do with the club. They're completely independent and they could operate out of their house. I mean, I think you've got to know the people, and there's so many DJs now that I think you need to go to the venues or the places that you want to play, and you have to understand what they're about, because why is somebody going to let you play in their space if you've got no knowledge of the space, what they do, what sort of music gets played, who the other DJs are? So you've got to do your due diligence to understand the club or whatever it is, or even if it be, you want to present a record to a label, there's nothing worse than getting we get a demo emailed to us and they forgot to put, everyone on Blind CC, and that it's gone to, 200 labels around the world, and you kind of think, okay, this person is just kind of throwing it at the wall and hope it sticks.
Yeah.
Really what they should be doing is finding that label that's all about their music, and they should be sending it to that person specifically, or even better, find out who they are and go and talk to them. So you've still got to be able to network, and you always had to be able to network. But the biggest difference is obviously access to music, and it's a double-edged sword because, as we were saying earlier, somebody can come in and Shazam what you play, and if you're playing in an underground club, sometimes your music edge is important. And obviously anybody can get nearly any song. Doesn't mean the DJ will put it together the same way, but that's, in a way, makes it more competitive. But on the flip side, if you're willing to look through the 4,500 releases that come out on Beatport every single week, or TrackSource or whatever, if you're willing to find that music that's a little bit different, that really suits your taste, then maybe you put more time into it than the person who just buys the Beatport Top 10.
Yeah.
In which case, you can still have a musical edge. It's just that if that DJ who bought the Beatport Top 10 hears you play that night, they can still Shazam that song and have it the next day.
Yeah.
So you've done the homework, and they're cashing in on it in a way.
Yeah.
But I guess, you'll always have that edge if you're passionate about music.
Yeah.
But of course, the upside of that is that, you used to have to live or certainly be in contact with a fairly major city to be able to go in and listen to brand new underground music.
Yeah.
You had to go to a Rhythm and Soul or a Central Station or DMC Records in Melbourne or whatever
Mighty Music Machine was back in the day. Yeah.
I mean, now you can be a kid, and there's a couple of kids that we went to a Pioneer thing, which I'm not sure if you were at or not.
No, I wasn't there that night, unfortunately. No.
But there was a couple of kids there who just discovered underground music on the web, and they love this. I mean, Gab Oliver, they love this. One of their favourite songs was this underground record that was on Phil's label by Gab. And it's like, how did this kid find this record?
Yeah.
Because you would never find that if you lived in, a regional town.
Yeah.
Now you can live in the middle of nowhere as long as you've got an internet connection.
Yeah.
You can find the same music that I can find, apart from, the odd promo that I might get a few weeks before on some thing. So the upside is that it doesn't matter where you are. You can dig through music, you can find music if you've got the passion to find the music.
Yeah, no, absolutely. One thing I missed though, and this is not me being like some old cantankerous old cunt here, but and you'd appreciate this too. Like, there was something really nice though about going to a store, talking to someone that was really into it, and they knew you, and you go into the store and they say, "Oh, John Corsa's coming in. Here's a stack of 8 fucking records." And like before, you were saying how it's like anyone who wants to send a track to a label or wants to go work at a club, do your due diligence, find out about the place, who's who in the zoo, and that's what they did. They'd know what you're into, what you were playing at the time, what gigs you were doing, so they'd be very selective, and they say, right,
Well, the other interesting thing is the food chain of music, because a record used to go from, firstly, it was expensive to make.
Yeah.
So not everybody would have had the studio gear to make a song that they do now. And again, this double-edged sword, because obviously more people making music is great.
Yeah.
But on the flip side, you go back 25 years, to make a song in the first place, you had to have a fairly kind of substantial financial investment.
Yeah.
That's whether the song comes out good or bad.
Yeah.
It's the same investment you've got to make in either hiring a studio or gear or buying equipment, whatever.
Yeah.
That's the first thing you have to do. Then to get it signed, you've got an A&R that's listening to it and deciding if it's good enough to sign. So that kind of still happens now, unless you've got your own label and you're putting it out. But from that point on, you then had a distributor that had to listen to it to decide if they wanted to invest in the vinyl to sell to their stores.
Yeah.
Then you had stores that had to decide if they were going to invest their money in buying the record off the distributor.
Yeah.
And then you had a selector in the store who was choosing which records to buy off the distributor. So he's not buying every record the distributor distributes. He's only buying the things might be subliminal or whatever the labels were that they like the music on. So you've got the selector choosing the music in the store, and then as you're going as a customer, you've got one of the people who works in the store breaking that down even more and giving you a pile, and then you as a DJ listening to that pile and you're buying
a certain amount.
This certain amount.
Yeah.
Then you're taking it to the gig and you're playing it, and some records are working and some aren't, and you're getting a reaction back. All of those people in that process, the only ones that are still there is the A&R and the DJ. So there's 3 or 4 people breaking it down in between that are all gone now.
Yeah.
So if a label starts to put out not great records, it still goes on to Beatport, and you've still got to go past it or look at it. So there's just so much music. And obviously, you know, if there's more music, the percentage of good and bad is probably about the same.
Yeah.
But if there was, you know, I think a record store like Rhythm and Soul in its heyday might have got 500, you know, 12s each week, maybe something like that. You know, and out of that, you know, there was 10 of this and 10, you know. So your weekly shipment was not a lot of records in compared to now where you've got 4,000 to 5,000 a week go on to Beatport.
It's crazy. Yeah.
You know, and obviously they're different genres, but still, there's a vast amount of music, and that's without the stuff that's free on SoundCloud. That's without the other music websites. That's without promos. It's just a lot of music.
So do you still enjoy actually buying records or downloads or
absolutely?
Like I know you get promo. Do you still actually physically go? You still physically buy shit?
I don't buy much now, mostly because most of the places I play don't have turntables anyway. So I don't buy too much, but I do. I mean, I buy music digitally. I just mean I don't buy that much vinyl.
Yeah.
But yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think if you're a DJ and you're not hungry for music, your career's over.
Yeah.
You have to be hungry for music. You have to be hungry to look. And I want, when I play a set, for the people who are hearing it, if it's a DJ, I want that DJ that's 18 to be still going, what's that track?
Yeah.
You know, if you get lazy about choosing music, that's a fundamental job of a DJ. You're a music selector.
Yeah.
And if you're not doing that, then, you know, the whole thing's over.
Yeah. How long do you reckon you take to prepare for a set on average?
Well, I don't really prepare for a set as such because I remember,
you can't predict what people are going to want.
Years and years ago, one of the best pieces of advice I ever got was from a DJ called Anders, very good technical DJ. And he was like, never practice it at home too much. Just practice it live because your skills will get better quicker.
Yeah.
And you'll have that unpredictability about what you play because you don't have these 3 songs that always go together.
Yeah.
So that was a good piece of advice that myself and Andy got off him at the time. And I guess we already thought a little bit like that, but he was a guy that we looked at his technical skills and we were like, okay, you know, we respect what he was doing. But I put a lot of time into having my music organized. I'm super anal about the organization because there's so much.
Organization in terms of BPM, keys,
I mean,
genres.
So basically, you know, there's so much music goes into my collection because I play some commercial clubs, I play underground sets, and I have a passion about music that I constantly buy records that I don't play anywhere.
Yeah.
Because I like the artist or I like the record or whatever it is. And plus, I guess I come from a mentality, used to pay $22 for a 12-inch. Now you pay $2 for a download. Yeah. So, hey, what's another $2?
Yeah.
If I kind of dig the tune, I'll be like, bang, you know.
Do you think it's cheap? Do you think because of the cost of music now, like the fact that we paid $22 for a 12-inch, there's a certain value in having that. Do you think just the way it's priced now, and because it's not a physical item, it's just people don't value it as much or respect it as much? Because of the disposability of it?
Yeah, I mean, the actual recording, I guess, is not as respected as it used to be. But I think on the flip side, an artist is, you know, their concert ticket price or their gig price that people are willing to go to hear a DJ play who they love is probably 10 times what it was, you know?
Yeah.
So I think people, once you're a fan of an artist or a fan of a DJ or a fan of, you know, any band, whether it be a pop act or whatever, then you're willing to invest in the things that have got to, you know, you put your money behind it because you like what you have. But yeah, certainly music, it moves faster, particularly, you know, we're talking about underground music moves faster.
Yeah.
It comes in and out. DJs are playing a lot of the time, you know, big DJs are playing a lot of their own records because, like, you know, a Calvin Harris set, somebody goes to see Calvin Harris, they want him to play his Calvin Harris hits. You know, that's what they're not really going to see a DJ in the old school sense of programming music. They're going to see like a pop concert, but it's not a pop concert, it's a DJ playing their tunes.
Their tunes, yeah.
So,
and for some people, it's really hard to wrap their head around. They go, you know, people who don't have an appreciation for DJing or the club culture, you know, it's just like, what? So this guy's getting paid $100,000 to just play records, and obviously we understand there's a lot more to it than just the physical playing of the records. But did you ever, honestly, mate, did you ever think you'd see a day where DJs would be getting 20, 30, 40 fucking $1,000 to play a 1 hour set?
No.
Be driving around, in, you know, being in Lear jets and like.
Look, you know.
How did we get to that stage, John Course? What the fuck happened? Like, what happened to create? Because
I'd like to be personally know exactly what happened if I was part of that $400,000 a set, but I didn't quite get to that level. But look, I think
still, but even with what you fucking done, man. Like, seriously, did you honestly believe back in the day that you'd be? I mean, because now it's not just. I mean, you're a DJ, but you know, you're a producer. You do A&R. You've got publishing. You've got recordings. You've got label. Like, did you was it really part of the plan, or was it? Did it just?
There's no plan. There was no plan.
Did it like? I love that.
I love that. No plan. I mean, similar to what I was saying before, you know, we're 16, 17, 18, getting into music, getting into going to clubs, looking at hearing records, and we're like, oh, who made this record? And obviously realizing that DJs are making music. So we started to look at the equipment that was getting talked about, 909, 808, TB303, Juno 106, you know, all the
classics.
All the standard, you know, Jupiter 8, whatever.
Yeah.
So that's where we learnt what to do. We just looked at what they were talking about, making records with, reading magazines about them, buy the equipment. But I don't think, you know, your expectations change as, you know, did we ever think that a record that was made in a shed in Frankston would go to number 1 on the UK pop chart? Don't Call Me Baby.
Yeah.
I mean, of course not. When we made it, we didn't think it would go to number 1.
When you actually heard it, right? Tell me, because like when you guys were doing it, honestly, mate.
Well, I wasn't creatively making the record, Andy.
But nonetheless, when you were fucking listening, because you obviously heard the record through its various phases. Did you? I mean, honestly, did you ever at any one point listen to it at some stage of its development and thought, you know what, like we might be onto something here?
Oh no, look, I mean, you got to go back 3, 4, 5 years before that, because, you know, that record come at a time when our expectations had already started to, you know, when we started, firstly we didn't know what was out there, and even if we had have known what other DJs were making around the world, there still hadn't been a lot of crossover records that had been made by DJs. I mean, I don't know what the first official top 40 hit was, but at the time, and it's much like the hip-hop movement, at the time when it was happening, the people who were in it didn't know what it was going to become. They were just doing their thing in the block in New York or whatever. And I'm sure guys like Dwan Atkins and, you know, the early house music producers, Kevin Saunders,
Jelly Bean, Benitez.
Yeah, you know, like those guys, they were just doing their thing on their level. And before Madison Avenue even formed, we'd had other records that had touched on, you know, that we'd signed, that had touched on, you know, charts in the UK. I mean, Dreams of Heaven by Ground Level was, I think, was about our 5th release. But, you know, we did a record with myself, Mark James, who was Future Entertainment. He was touring Carl Cox on Carl's first ever Australian tour, I think it was. And he said, we're going to make a record with Carl, you know. So
speaking of Frankston or Boynton, I mean, he
lives there now.
Yeah.
It was quite funny because I remember me and Andy kind of looking up to Carl. You know, he's a legendary DJ. It was always a great DJ. And, you know, we used to read stories about him, and, you know, he kind of drove this, I think he had an M5 at one stage and lived in Europe and was DJing everywhere. And we're thinking, wow, imagine that. And then come forward 25 years, he's got an amazing car collection. He lives in Frankston, Frankston South or something, where we used to be. But, we started to, early days of the label, and when we were making music, we started to have some things like that connected overseas a little bit, even on an underground level.
Yeah.
I think our third release was signed to a label in New York, and then Dreams of Heaven by Ground Level was, I think, our fifth or sixth release, and it charted in the UK. So at this point, we've realised, okay, if the record's the right record and it's a good record, we're going to sign it to a label overseas. And that label overseas could, theoretically, have a hit with it.
Yeah.
Not that Ground Level Dreams of Heaven was a massive hit, but it was big on the club chart.
Yeah.
And so that telescope you're looking down that was very small is now slightly bigger, because you're realising, hey, we've had records that were made in Melbourne by people that we've signed or dealt with, and we've seen them work internationally from a dance music production kind of thing, just like rock bands had previously had happen.
Yeah.
So, your expectations open up that, okay, if record's good. Then we had a song called Gotta Have Hope by Blackout, which was myself, Andy, Darren Glenn and Andy J, Sergeant Slick. And that was kind of like, we used to go over to a thing called Meetum, which was a big music conference, similar to ADE that we go to now.
In France,
Yeah. And, we had this kind of track, and we thought, oh, this is okay. And this label overseas signed it. And we were like, oh, interesting that they picked that record. We didn't have huge expectations for it. And then these guys that were really hot did this remix. And I remember distinctly, we get the remix sent back to us on vinyl. We hadn't heard it. So the vinyl arrives, in the post. We put it on in the office in Frankston, in the little studio. And me and Andy are like, this remix is like, wow.
Yeah.
We were like, I don't know, we were just blown away.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And then obviously we played it to the other guys who made the original version.
Yeah.
And we were all like, man, they've smashed this remix out the park. This could really connect.
Yeah.
And that did connect. And it ended up being a song that we licensed. And it didn't connect in a top 5 pop chart.
Yeah.
But that was a bigger record again. So, that thing that started off like this is now like this, and now Don't Call Me Baby gets listened to in the office.
Because that just went fucking spastic from day one, right? Really.
But it took a long time, and that's the difference with music now. It moves so fast. We had the promos we had 10 white labels that we pressed as test pressings to hear, you used to have to cut a test pressing of vinyl before you could
go and press it up.
Go and press it up. So we had the test pressings. We had 10 of them. I had one. Andy had one at the time. We were DJing in Melbourne clubs. We gave the other ones to a couple of other influential DJs that we thought would play it. And it became a really big record in the gay scene, in Melbourne gay clubs and Sydney gay clubs as well. And this is, January, February, March. We're waiting for the copies to come back. And then finally the finished pressings come back and they go into the stores. And obviously by this time, there's a handful of guys who have been playing this record a lot. So then 3 months later, the vinyl comes, and then 3 months after that, the CD gets released and the video's made, and suddenly, all those tools, it had a build that you could kind of feel, wow, this record's...
There's some momentum behind it, yes.
But the first listen was just, this is a really good record.
Yeah.
You guys have killed it, First time I heard it, I was like, Shane actually... I'm not sure she was always going to sing it. She wrote it, and I think her and Andy thought maybe somebody else was going to sing it. They didn't know necessarily they were going to even be in Madison Avenue as such.
Yeah.
But she just sounded right on that song, And
it's definitely got some attitude.
Yeah, I mean, look, Shane she's a very strong-willed person, and obviously they didn't make another album, and that's probably because they clashed their personalities. Yeah. But at the same time, they would never have made that record without. You don't make a record called "Don't Call Me Baby" or "Who the Hell Are You" if you're like the couch potato in the corner. You're strong.
Yeah, you're not a fucking doormat. That's for sure.
You got balls about what you do, and the whole way Madison Avenue was presented was always super cool on that front. It was a very. And it was around the time, it was a bit of a girl power movement around that time. Spice Girls were around, and you know, so it was interesting that, you know, but yeah, our expectations were, this is a really good record. It's got great potential to do something. We've got to try and get this in the hands of the right people. And I remember, again, me and Andy we went into FFRR, which was a sub-label of Polydor in the UK.
Pete Tong's label, right?
Yeah, Pete Tong's label. A guy called Phil Faversham was the A&R guy, still does A&R, still see him running around when I go to conferences and stuff. Yeah. But we taking it into play to a few labels if we could, so we finally got these meetings. None of them had heard the record, obviously. And we got these meetings and we, you know, played the record and we played it to Phil, and Phil was like, wow, this is, like we'd be interested in doing this. Yeah. And then the next meeting was at Virgin. So we're in the black cab and I'm on the phone. I'm giving the taxi driver directions and Andy's phone rings and it's Phil going, can you come back and talk to us about this record? I've played it to people, blah, blah, blah. And he heard me giving the directions to Virgin. Yeah. And he's like, don't go to Virgin. Turn the car around, come back. It was quite funny. And I remember thinking, you know, a couple of years before, we couldn't find these guys for love nor money. Yeah. You know, the A&R guys at some of the big dance labels, they were just, if you knew them, they could walk straight past you. But some of those conferences in those days weren't that organised as far as, you know, at things like Amsterdam now, ADE, which is the biggest dance music conference in the world. Yeah. You know, there's a directory online. Yeah. Everyone's registered. Yeah. You can contact them. You can email them through that. Yeah. Like, you can find everybody. And if somebody, and obviously once you've gone a few times, if somebody isn't registered, you know their face from the previous time, so you can find them. But at the time, we couldn't find these people for meetings or to play them records, and we always wanted to get records in their hands. And then, you know, once you've got the hot record, from that point on, and there was always a few people, a guy called Mark Bounds used to work for Sony, and there was always another guy, Jason Ellis, still works for Positiva, you know, and, you know, it's largely one of the key reasons David Guetta is at that label. Yeah. But, I mean, those two guys always gave us quite a lot of time, early days. And I guess it's because they'd heard records like the Dreams of Heaven or Gotta Have Hope or whatever that had done a little bit, and they were like, okay, there's something going on with those guys at Vicious. So, you know, there was people who were really supportive right from the start. There was other guys who were really hard to find. Yeah. But yeah, once you got the music in their hands, and with Don't Call Me Baby, as I said, the expectations grew from being positive about it in the studio and hearing it for the first time. For me, I was like, yeah, this is really good, guys. Like, you know, then to seeing the reactions from playing the white labels, and you know, you can see a build there. Yeah. Doesn't mean it's going to happen, but at the time we're just excited and we're thinking, okay, it's got every opportunity to happen. Yeah. It actually came out twice in the UK. Yeah. The first time it came out, it didn't work. Right. And it got re-released. It was just bad timing. It was going into winter. It got released over there, and there was actually a bootleg of it that ended up being on the official release that kind of kept the track bubbling over the winter in the UK. Yeah. And it got re-released in May, and it went to number one. Yeah. 200 copies more than Britney Spears. Wow. Only 208 copies, I think it was. Yeah. Difference in sales from number one to number two. Yeah. So, but it never went to number one in Australia. Don't Call Me Baby, you know.
Didn't it?
No. Number two.
Wow.
Yeah, it sat at number two for like, I think at the time there was, I mean, I still know these records because we used to look at the chart every week and go, again, you know. Yeah. There was Blue, that Blue, Babadi, remember that song? And there was a comedy dude, a guy's comedy record that was a parody of another song, and it was a joke record. Like, he was a comedian. Yeah, yeah. I'm a Bloke. Remember that?
Oh, yeah.
So those two sat at number 1 and 3, and then they swapped, and we stayed at number 2 the whole time.
You're sandwiched.
Which was funny, you know. But Who the Hell Are You? It was great timing, because when it ended up when Don't Call Me Baby went to number 1 in the UK, I think it was the first time an Australian written and produced record had gone to number 1 in the UK that was made in Australia since Joe Dolce Shut Up Your Face, which was 15 years before. Yeah. And the week it went to number 1 in the UK, the next week we released Who the Hell Are You in Australia, and there was a great full-page story in the Herald Sun about Madison Avenue, and of course at the bottom, new single out. So it was really good timing from from a marketing angle. It was great.
I want to ask you something. I just want to go on a complete tangent just for a moment, because I'm, part of this podcast. I'm really, because you and I really haven't sat down and had an actual, real. I mean, we're having one now. I'm just fascinated to know what has been your biggest challenge through life, and in just as a DJ, as a businessman. Yeah, if not one thing, I mean, what have you found to be the biggest challenges and obstacles that you've overcome over the years?
Look,
Self-doubt?
Not really, actually.
That's great.
If you've got no expectations about where you want to go necessarily at the start, then you can't really be disappointed that you didn't get there, because you don't know. We started, as I said, got into music because I liked it. Yeah. Once I started doing tricks and DJing and wanted to go in the DMCs, then obviously I wanted to win it. And I won Victoria, didn't win Australia, tried again the next year. By that time, I was getting into club DJing and, so there's some setbacks as far as you have gigs and you're earning money, and then suddenly, I remember I was a resident 5 nights a week at a club, and the club launched brand new. There was 2 of us there. The other guy was the guy who kind of got me there, and then it didn't go to expectations, and weren't enough people. It wasn't going 5 nights a week, so I was out, and I'd left other things to go and do that. So at the time I was, 23 or something, 22, thinking, okay, there's all my DJ gigs gone in because of like that. Yeah. So at the time I was like, okay, this is a bit of a setback, but when you're 22 and it's not like you have a mortgage and kids to put through uni or anything or school, if you.
But it's still it still will affect you. When you're young and you've got a point to prove. You've fucking got testosterone. You're out fucking doing your thing, and then but in the context of a 22-year-old's life, it's still a big fucking hit.
Yeah, look, I think from my point of view, I was involved in music from a really young age, through breakdancing and hip hop. My mum was always super positive, so she kind of gave both me and my sister a positive mindset. She's, because she would embrace the good things that were out there that we could do and help us do them and help us. We didn't grow up with a lot of money, so it was just about trying to make the most of opportunities. Yeah. And Mum was always super positive. And I guess once you start to do something and you do it okay and you get feedback as a kid, whether you might be a good footy player, or you might be, whatever it is, if you're getting positive feedback, your self-esteem starts to feel okay that you can do things. So I don't think there was ever a point where we kind of, there was certainly with the label times when we were like, are we going to keep going? And I don't think myself and Andy, Colin Daniels was part of the label for a long time, but he ended up working overseas at times when the label was tough. Yeah. I don't think myself and Andy have really ever had an argument about whether or not we should still be doing a record label. Yeah. We certainly got frustrated at the position we were in when we wanted to do things and couldn't necessarily do them how we wanted to, or things like that. But I don't think, Mushroom Distribution Services, a guy called Scott Murphy used to run it. He was...
What's he up to these days?
He runs the AMP Music Prize.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so he's part of organising that. But, he was, without knowing it at the time, that company was super supportive to us. We didn't quite realise I guess we did, because we were making CDs and making vinyl, and we're doing it on their tab. Yeah. And then they were distributing it and selling and getting their money back. Yeah. Now, neither of us were making a lot of money. Yeah. But I remember probably for 7 years, we didn't make a profit at all, and me and Andy didn't get paid. Yeah. And it was just me and Andy running it, and then, and Colin Daniels for a while there as well. But he ended up working at Mushroom Distribution Services. So he was their dance music guy. Yeah. And then we were, so our label was in there, and Scott, on Mushroom's behalf, they obviously wanted the vinyl to sell and the music to sell through their network.
Yeah.
So they were kind of co-funding it really. That from the sales of one would pay for the next one, and we weren't getting anything, which was fine because that's just how it worked.
Yeah.
And then we put out a compilation, and just purely by chance, we had a song on the compilation. It's Like That, Run DMC. That Jason Nevins remix that blew up.
Yeah.
And we got the song on the compilation, and then the label realized the song was going to be really big and didn't put it on any other compilations.
Right.
And we had this compilation out, Fisher's Cuts Volume 4, I think it was, or 2 or something. And it had our stuff on it and other people's stuff, and it had that song on it. And it came out just before Christmas and was on no other comps. So our compilation sold quite a lot for what it was.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, I'm not talking millions. I'm talking, you know, it might have sold. I think our first ever royalty check was about $12,000.
Right.
And it was on the back of that 3 months later, you know. Yeah. And we were like, you know, wow. And I remember Scott gave us the check. He's like, you know, well done. Yeah. So, you know, without those people, we probably wouldn't have got that far. But there was a few times when the label, you know, it's not an easy thing to run, especially when you've got overheads with, you know, vinyl and manufacturing and all that stuff. Yeah. So, yeah, there's certainly times when you kind of get a bit frustrated. Yeah. But I don't think we've ever been kind of, you know, in that real negative space.
Just never got really dire where it's just like, I mean, we're going to close the doors here any day now.
No, and I also think, you know, even when, look, it's just the way that I am for whatever reason, you know, you can't change the bad stuff. You can't make something that's happened that's been bad when it's gone bad. You can't change it. You can learn from it.
Totally.
You can try and not make the same mistake again. Yep. But you actually can't change the mistake you've already made.
That's right.
You can do things to, you know, if it's I remember we, you know, we did things where we, you know, thought we had fruit on the cover of an album and we scented the thing, you know, and we were like, this is great. It smells like oranges. Yeah. But then they all stuck together. You know, so just dumb things that you're like, okay, we've got to manufacture all those covers again. Yeah. There's another 25 cents off the bottom line. That, but you know,
you learn from that shit.
You learn, you know.
You got to be good at fucking up, man. I think there's no one was born a genius.
You got to be good at learning from it. You know, it doesn't matter what you do. Yeah. If you don't learn from the mistakes, then you'll make them again, and then you're really in trouble. But I think we always managed to look at the positive things that were going on, and you know, even with I think my mentality with our staff even is, you know, there's everybody in our organisation, which is not that big, but everybody's got their bad things and their good things. Now you can try and make their bad things better, or you can kind of work out how to work around their bad things and make their good things amazing.
Yeah.
And if you can do that, you just hire the person that's got that. You know, if somebody's creatively amazing but can't add up the numbers, get a good accountant. Yeah. You know, and get somebody who's a gun at numbers and has no idea about creativity.
That's the thing, man. People got to learn how to delegate, because you play your strengths. You have to know your weaknesses and go, okay, I'm shit at this, so I'm going to delegate and get that. But people are afraid to spend money, I think, for the most part. You know, or people get to a point and they just they get afraid, I think, you know. Well, they realise, oh shit, now I'm at the next level now. Now I need to look at getting this and getting lawyers and all that kind of stuff.
You hear it with people making demos, and they're like, oh, you know, I've got to mix it down, I've got to master it. You know, well, no, you don't. You know, if you've got a good idea, find an engineer who's good. Yeah. You've got the core idea. It's still your record. I mean, the greatest albums in the world were mixed down by a studio engineer. Yeah. You know, and when it was the Beatles and the Rolling Stones doing it, no one's going, oh, you're not a real musician because you didn't mix it. Yeah. Like, it doesn't matter. Yeah. Find the experts in that. I mean, Ghost producing, that argument about what somebody's actually doing is a bit different. But find people that can assist you, can make your things better, and concentrate on making the music, not learning how to twist knobs to mix down a song necessarily. Yeah. I mean, obviously over time your skills will get better, but you don't necessarily need all that. Other people can do that. Yeah. If you're willing to embrace that, I don't have to do everything.
Yeah, that's the thing. And for a lot of people, it's hard to let go. Or there's a necessity too. I mean, again, I got so many clients who'll come here and they'd love to be able to have a graphic artist, or even though they know we're not that great, but they're just forced to have to use Photoshop, or they're not great at lots of things, but they just have to do it, just purely out of necessity. Because it's hard to get people to do shit for free. I mean, there's not a lot of people that'll do it and offer themselves, and that's great. And initially, that's probably your entry level in, but still, you can't rely on that.
No, and you can't take advantage of someone. I mean, if you're trading skills, great.
Yeah, sure.
You know, if you're
nothing like a contract.
If you're a good photographer and they're a good artist, and they need photos for their art, and you need art for your photos to make covers or whatever you're doing, great. You know, you can. And I'm sure that's how a lot of collaborations on music ends up happening.
Yeah.
Because both people feel like somebody else brings something to the party, and
I think that's the important thing I tell kids is that like if you're going to get involved, like first of all, understand that now more than ever it's a relationship economy, and we touched on that before. Going out, meeting people, doing your homework. But if you're going to go somewhere, actually take the time to find out who the person is, their name. You don't necessarily have to stalk them and know everything about them. But I know myself, when people would come to me and they would be able to tell me stuff about my part or records I've done, and they've taken the time out to actually find out. It does make a bigger impression on you.
Yeah, and the information is there more than ever.
Yeah.
Like, you can find so much stalkery stuff
if
you want to
totally
about what somebody does or what they do or where they've been or how to find them. That if you want to cross paths with, I mean, obviously mega celebrities, no, but if you want to cross paths with a DJ whose music you like, you can cross paths with Seth Troxler or Sven Vath quite easily by going to where they are and saying hello, and they'll say hello. Doesn't mean you're going to be best mates. Doesn't mean they're necessarily going to listen to a piece of music you give them. But, if you want to go down that path of networking, then you can find stuff out. You can find where people are. You can find where they DJ. You can find what the music's like. You can do a lot now, a lot easier.
Yeah. And I think kids also forget that, young kids, but kids in particular, it's easy to become intimidated by the person that you see, on the profile. And we're in a day and time and age where, we have access through social media to people. If it's not direct, maybe it's nonetheless it's going there. You got an address. Whereas 20, 30 years ago, it was that shit didn't exist. But despite that, there's still a fear that kids have, is like, well, and it's part of the reason why, one of the reasons why I'm doing this event that you'll be at on 6th of August, which I'm really grateful that you're going to be there, is, there still might be a kid that might be a fan of yours or what you do, and they know that they can reach you, but but I'm sure there's a lot of them who just think, okay, I know it's there, but what am I going to say? What is he going to care? Will he get back to me? Will he, they're afraid, and they don't realize that, again, in my experience, John Course, most of the people who I've met who have been very successful and have had long track records are usually, they're grounded, they're humble, they're approachable. I mean, like as you said, they can't be everyone's best mate and they can't get onto everyone. But I think, most people are very, very approachable these days.
Yeah, you can't, we get a lot of demos, and you obviously don't go back to everybody with feedback. If it's somebody that I personally know sends me something, I try and be as positive with feedback, even if it's negative feedback. There's no point pissing in someone's pocket.
Totally agree.
If you don't give your honest feedback, they're not going to get better. But on the, they have to have, there's an onus on people to do a little bit of homework and to, kind of have an understanding of, if you're making dance music and you're making underground techno, as an example, if it doesn't cut it next to the records that you're buying, don't bother sending it to somebody yet.
Yeah.
Wait till you feel like it's good enough to be compared to the songs that you're playing.
Yeah.
Because if it's not, then you're kind of telling the people that you want to have embrace your music, you're telling them that you're not that good.
Yeah.
In a way.
Yeah, totally.
So you've got to have your own judgment, and you've got to have your own set of people around you that will give you honest feedback and will help make what you do better instead of just telling you that it's amazing.
Yeah. Because
then you get this false sense of where you're at and you're in trouble. So I think that, being grounded about and understanding where your music fits in, and that sort of stuff is really important.
Yeah, I think it's important that people they should be up. I mean, artists, creatives, we're insecure for the most part. We're self-doubting. I mean, that's the nature of the artist.
Yeah.
For the most part. But there's still got to be a point where you got to be behind it and really feel it.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean you got to oversell it or be arrogant about it. But again, one of the things I hate, John Course, right, is when a band or some kid will come up with something and they're presenting their CD or a USB stick or whatever, and they go, well, here's something we've done, but you got to understand something. You're like, we didn't have any money. The engineer was pissed that morning. We had and straight away they're just coming at all these things. And as far as I'm concerned, when I hear that these days, why would I want to listen to it? Like, why? If they're already telling me it's shit, I mean, they're already sort of making excuses for it. Right?
Yeah.
I really don't. I mean, I understand people don't want to come across as being arrogant and it maybe downselling it so that it maybe gives a bigger impression, but I think it's important that you are able to stand behind it and be confident in what you do. Yeah. Of course, you're not going to please everyone. That's a game you'll never fucking win. But at least, like you said, just wait until you honestly believe, okay, I can drop this in a set with this and this that's out in the market, and it's comparable.
Yeah,
it's comparable.
And then there still might be reasons why a label doesn't sign it.
Yeah.
There could be a multitude of reasons. If you've already got an act like that, you might not want a second act that's making the same exact style, or you might have X amount of underground music you want to put out, and once you've got a few artists that are doing that, you're like, well, we don't really have much room in that space. Maybe another label would.
Yeah.
There's lots of reasons why people don't put music out. Yeah. So you've also got to be positive about it yourself. Mm-hmm. You've got to get it to a certain level that you're comfortable presenting it to people. Mm-hmm. You also don't necessarily have to take the feedback that you get as complete gospel.
Yeah.
But obviously, if you send it to 6 labels and they all tell you no, if you don't hear back from, 10 labels and you know that they all heard it, which of course you can set up your SoundCloud so that, when they log in, you can see if it's been played.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a bit of, there's some technology out there to help you. If the email's been opened, if you send it the right way.
Yeah.
If the link's been clicked on. If it's been listened to by the play counts, whatever.
Mm.
If you send a separate SoundCloud to each A&R person, you'll be able to actually tell which A&R person's listened to it if you really want to go that far.
Yeah.
So you can get some feedback from people without them even knowing they're giving you feedback.
Yeah.
So you've got to use some of that stuff to your advantage too. But, I'm not saying that you should constantly bash against a wall with a bad record.
Yeah.
But at the same time, don't be too disheartened because one label says no.
Yeah.
But if obviously 50 say no, you've got more work to do.
Absolutely. I think, and that's where resilience is really important. And is again, you not have a false sense of who you are, but self-belief. I think it's everything. You really do have to believe in yourself, and I think you make a really good point, John, about the idea of who is your inner circle? Who are the people? Like, it's all good to have yes men and your mates, and that's all fine and dandy. But I've often said that your real friends will say the shit things to your face and the nice things behind your back.
Yeah, it's probably right.
Yeah. But for a lot of people, it's really hard to fucking take to swallow, because it's so easy for people to get emotionally hooked into something, especially if you're a creative. It's like, this is your expression. This is your fucking baby.
I mean, the amount of times that I've had an artist that we've got signed send me 2 records and they're really passionate about one and I like the other one. Like, it happens all the time.
Right.
And they're like, but I only worked on that one for like an hour.
Yeah.
And you like that more than the one that I spent a week or 2 weeks or a month on.
Yeah.
But that's the thing about fresh ears and people that you trust being in your circle is we don't really care how long you worked on it for. Yeah. When you come to it, from the outside, you just care about what it sounds like.
Yeah.
And if it took a month or it took 2 days, that doesn't really matter.
And at the end of the day, to us, punters don't give a shit. As to quote the old, Phil K. Gabola back in the day would say, "When the needle drops, the bullshit stops." And that's true. It's at the day that's it. And the punters who are paying for it, that's what they give a fuck about. Does it rock their world? Yes. Tick. Great.
Yeah.
How it got there, for most people, don't know, don't give a
right.
fuck, don't care.
But the circle of people around you, as you said, is really important. And it hasn't really changed, even though the music industry's changed dramatically as far as how music's delivered, and it's digital now and it used to be on vinyl, whatever. It can be released independently. You can do it on SoundCloud. Most successful people still have a manager of some sort to advise them on the business. They still have creative people around them that help fine-tune their music.
Yep.
They still have marketing people.
Yeah.
Helping them get the message that fits with what they're doing out. And I don't care whether that's Sven Vath, who is a legendary techno DJ, or some brand, Maceo Plex, who's an underground music guy, or whether it's Katy Perry. They've still got those people around them.
Totally. It's a team. It's a team.
Some of them aren't necessarily paid. Some of them aren't necessarily called a manager. Somebody might not be called an A&R guy, but there might be somebody that Maceo Plex plays every record to. Yeah. Like his mate, or like Phil Kay, or and that person gives them feedback and says, "Man, that's rocking," or "Hey, you should. That drop's a bit too long," whatever.
Yeah. Some kind of constructive input. Yeah.
And it's important. You gotta have. I think you've really got to have that sort of stuff, and people that you trust. Yeah. You trust their ear, or you trust their opinion. That when they say, don't say that on your social media channel. Yeah. That you don't just go and then say that. You stop and you think about it.
That's one thing I admire about you guys, because you guys started, so many years ago, and even guys like Ivan Goff. I mean, it's nice to see that as you guys have sort of just gone from strength to strength, that you still maintain. I don't know if it's a loyalty, or it's very, very easy for people to forget about where they came from, or the people that were there along. And things change and dynamics change in life. But in your case, it's still nice to see that. You guys have gone through 25 years now?
Label's been going 24 years.
Yeah. Because I remember did a little video snippet for the 21st.
That's right. Yeah.
And I got to be like, when I was it was Colin Daniels. Fuck, anyway.
Colin McMillan.
Fuck.
Yeah.
Thank you. He just said, "Hey, Mr. Mate, do you want to? It's the 21st anniversary." And I was thinking, "You fucking serious?
It's a long time.
21 fucking Jesus, fuck." So so I said, "Yeah, fuck yeah, let's do it. We'll do it. Absolutely. Why wouldn't I? Because I mean, it's an amazing story, John. It's an amazing story, and kudos to you and you guys. Like, it's all good to go all shucks and be all humble about it, but at the end of the day, man, it is what it is.
Oh, look, we're proud of
and so you should.
We're proud of the history that we've done, with Vicious.
You've written your fucking chapter,
but
mate.
At the same time, you don't. It's like, to be fair, somebody, a 16-year-old kid that is making music now, it doesn't really. If you're only thinking about what you've done, you're not going to, you can't live off that.
No, of course, like, past glories, yeah.
You got to be proud of what you've done, and absolutely. Look, we've helped so many Australian artists get started. Some, Ivan Goff put his first record out with us. Yeah. James Ash, who ended up being Rogue Traders. Like, I mean, so many people. Avicii put his first music out with us.
I mean, look, that's a great story. Tell people about Avicii. We were talking a bit before. It's like that blew my fucking mind.
Well, I don't know how exactly. I mean, look, it probably comes back to Dirty South. Because Dirty South was from Dandenong.
Yeah, I remember him.
Dandenong area.
Dragon.
Right, Dragon. Back in Australia now, actually. But anyway, he. I guess we started putting his music out, and it started to really connect. And I think people who are making that kind of melodic, kind of very musical, big music, big dance music, they looked at the labels that were putting other music like that out, and they would try and send them demos. And so when Dirty South, and I think we put some things out from Ivan at the time, Accelerator with him and Luke.
Yeah.
Some of those big proggy kind of records at the time. We had a track called Believe by Traveller and In Motion. Yeah. So when we were putting that music out, I think people started to send us demos of that style of music. Yeah. And Andy was on a vandalism tour in Europe, and he was in Sweden, and Avicii's manager, who was just his mate, Ash, contacted Andy and said, I manage this kid, Vici, can you come in and listen to his music?
Yeah.
So Andy went in to listen to it, and we ended up signing him before anybody else had found him, really.
Yeah.
We signed him for 9 records. His 10th record was Levels. So we'd love to have had one more, but and he probably, to be fair, he probably had it in the bag, waiting for when he was, free to do it himself, how he wanted to do it. Which is, that's just one of the things of how labels work, especially dance music labels where, a lot of music comes out. So,
but that was 9 albums, a big commitment to get, like,
no, 9 singles.
9 singles, okay.
At the time.
Yeah.
And, Andy,
but it's still fucking.
Andy's got a photo of Avicii, 17, sitting at a desk, 2 speakers, an old crappy computer, and him. That's it.
Yeah.
And 5 years later, he headlined Stereosonic. Like who'd have, and again, we didn't, we knew there were big DJs that toured the world. We didn't necessarily think, we had that guy at the time.
Yeah.
We saw great potential. He was always very melodic,
and
most of his hits are quite melodic, and they've got, certainly Levels has that amazing melodic hook that is just, really one of those records that crossed all genres and was a huge record globally. We didn't know he was going to have those sorts of records, but again, he didn't either. So his learning curve and his, focus that was, I make kind of instrumental, progressive, kind of melodic house records, become, I might add a vocal, I might add a sample, and then it become, I might get a full singer on it, and, obviously he started making pop records in the end. But, it's kind of cool that you can find those people. Dirty South, another guy that we dealt with really early on, and he always knew what he wanted to do. He was always passionate about it.
I remember I first met Drag in 17. I was cutting vinyl at the old Corduroy, and I remember this kid, this skinny kid, came in and he was making his own edits, and he was you could tell this kid was talented. And this is when he did that bootleg of that Brighto's bootleg. That fucking West Australian band, the name escaped me now, but that was the record that blew up for him. And I remember
It's Too Late.
I remember just being there cutting this, this booty that he made while he was there, and I just thought, wow, this is really quite extraordinary. I had no idea it was going to fucking blow up. As far as I was concerned, he's a kid, he's really passionate. He wants to spend money. He wants to fucking cut a slate. So this is great. But you know what? He just had this persona about him, man. Like he was self-assured, he was confident, but he was also very humble about what he did, and he obviously just loved music.
And still does, and also had his vision for how he wanted. Obviously at the start, you're a bit more raw, so you're not sure how everything works, but he learnt very quickly about how things worked, and had his version of how he wanted to do things. He never really signed another record deal after the deal with us. He signed one-off records everywhere, and he started his own label and put things out himself, of which he signed very little other music to. Most of it, I mean, there's a few things there, but a lot of it was just his material. So he kind of knew how he wanted to do things, and even though he had, biggest labels in the world with the most money probably chasing him, he still did it how he wanted to do it.
I think it's great if you can maintain your sense of artistic integrity, but also from the business angle, I think, because a lot of artists they don't have the business nous, and how many people get caught up in losing their publishing.
Advice,
But just but I think it takes a lot of balls, man, to do that. It's so easy to be able to say, well, I'll go with this guy because of the name and reputation, but to actually just to say, you know what, fuck it, I'm just going to back myself, I'm going to do my thing. But when it pays off, though, you can pay off big time, especially when we talk about publishing and shit like that, man. It's
And look, I'm sure that, obviously the touring side, like we said before, is so lucrative now compared to what it used to be like that, really a lot of records are just business cards for your gigging schedule.
Totally.
And if there's a lot of artists all around the world that would be earning $2 to $10 million who've never had a top 40 hit. A lot of DJs, whether it, and I'm talking about earning that much money, $2-3 million a year touring. If you're potentially somebody like Maceo Plex, you know,
Yeah.
or Kolsch, or
Yeah.
you know, these big acts that everybody knows who's in dance music.
Mm.
They've never had top 40 hits, and they don't need to.
Yeah.
You know,
That's
they
true.
just need to do their thing.
Mhm.
So, you know, you don't need to have pop success necessarily to earn a lot of money, because the touring side's so lucrative. So you can just, you know, if you're passionate about it and you stick to what you do, and you know, I mean, obviously you're not going to, early days, you're not going to just break like that,
Of course
because
not. 10 years to make an overnight success, John. Of course.
yeah, but you've got, if you've got your head in the game, those opportunities can open. And Australian DJs, you know, any DJ from anywhere really can, if you start making music, you can get it signed to any label in the world, if it's good enough, and you can DJ anywhere in the world. You know, like when I started off, we didn't think like that.
No, well, there wasn't a market for it. I mean,
No.
I think it was unfathomable, as I said before, that we'd see a situation where a DJ could command 100K to play an hour set. It's, you know, or
I think more to the point, I think you could see it from the pop thing. You know, you could see that if you started to have pop hits, you turn into a pop artist, and therefore there's money because a lot of people know your music. I think the more surprising one probably is the underground. Like, you wouldn't have thought that an underground act who makes completely underground music and never has a crossover record can make a lot of money where they can now. That's probably a little bit more surprising than, you know, an artist that makes, if you make a song like Don't Call Me Baby, and it doesn't matter that you're a DJ, you know, once everybody knows that song, they want to know who made it and go and watch them DJ.
Yeah.
But I think the underground one is probably a little bit more left field, that you think, wow, you know. I mean, I'm sure Sven Vath, who, 25 years ago was playing underground techno and coming and playing like a party for Richie, you know, at the docks or something, he probably is earning more money now than he's ever earned. And he probably can't quite believe it, but it slowly has happened. And
What do you think about this evolution of like Pete Tong's coming out to us?
The Heritage Orchestra,
to do that sort of thing. And recently, I remember seeing online, you know, Phil played a track that he and Luke was a low step track that Dave Seaman played along, like, you know, to the whole symphony thing. I think that's an interesting evolution. I mean, we had Jeff Mills in the MSO, and
that's right.
Like when I first, and I thought, wow, this is really cool. Like a really interesting concept, you know, of just dance music reinventing itself and evolving, and like, who would have funked that shit, you know, 10, 15 years ago?
But I mean, dance music in the sense of house music is one of the longest music movements that there's been. I mean, a lot of music comes and goes within 5 or 6 years, really. If you think of, you know, how big.
Do you remember, mate,
punk or? You know,
speaking of house, I remember when I was overseas at the time, and mates of mine would make these recordings of Triple R of Paul Marinelli and Alan Rados. You know, was it
Dance Till Dawn?
Dance Till Dawn, and Beats Per Minute, and it was just like, and it was amazing, like what those guys did as pioneers. And you're right, it's just house music in the general broad spectrum. It's a legitimate fucking genre, mate.
Well, it's been around, and this is why I guess the Heritage Orchestra type thing that Tong's doing, and Ministry are doing one. Actually, Ministry of South Australia are doing a orchestrated thing with singers playing, basically, you know, covering house classics. Is that the generation that wants to hear that music, they're not in clubs anymore, because if house music, the first house music was around 85, 86 on an underground level. Probably in Australia, 88 people started to know about it, unless you were really into clubbing. 88, 89, things like, you know, Yaz, The Only Way Is Up, and those crossover hits back in that time, the KLF, whatever. You know, those people are now 40, 50. If you were 30 years old when you were clubbing in 1988, you know, now you're 60. So you're not going to go to 161 till 5 in the morning. You're going to relive your youth at these shows at the Melbourne Symphony Orchestra with playing that music. So it's probably got to do more. I mean, how would you ever? You could never predict that
No.
There's no way that Faithless knew
Mm.
that their song was going to get played by an orchestra at the Royal Albert Hall
Yeah.
with Pete Tong out front.
Yeah.
In 30 years' time or
Yeah.
25 years' time. It's just
It's crazy.
unfathomable at the time.
It's crazy. Do you still enjoy music for the sake of music?
Yeah, I mean, I don't listen. It's funny, I don't listen to a lot of music at home, because I guess I listen to it everywhere else.
Yeah.
Still love playing.
Yeah.
Certainly love DJing. Love also going out and hearing, the right person when I really want to hear them.
Mm-hmm.
But kind of DJ Friday and Saturday nights, some Sundays. So I tend not to, I don't want to live my life in clubs, obviously.
Yeah.
Especially now, there's other things to do that are fun and exciting, and that you want to. We've got myself and a guy, Toby Fowler. We started a management business that's separate to Vicious.
Mm-hmm.
So that's something that we manage 4 acts. That's an exciting thing that you kind of want to sink your teeth into, and you gather all this somewhat useless information over years and years of experiencing stuff.
Yeah.
And you got to work out how to apply that to your future. I have to work that out.
Yeah.
How I can apply all those stupid skills and stupid knowledge that no one else cares about.
Mm-hmm.
How can I use all that experience to help both me in the future and help other people as well? So, the management thing kind of makes sense. The guy that I'm doing it with, he's a young guy, very tech savvy, very switched on about, the new world of how it works.
Yeah.
So it's a really nice meld of kind of, I guess, while I try to remain as open-minded as I can be about, the future and the technological side of things.
Yeah.
As we were saying before, it's never going to come as naturally to me as it does to somebody who grew up on an iPhone.
In that culture.
So it's a good mash of kind of, his skill set, my skill set, and so things like that are exciting,
Yeah.
So, I guess the DJing side of music is great, and I still love dance music. I still love hearing acts that, as I said, that I want to go and hear. But at the same time, I don't listen to it all day.
Yeah. I think it's important to take a break from it. I find people are surprised, and I think you must have some amazing fucking stereo at home. I don't even have a stereo at home, John Course. I got a shit fucking car stereo in my Falcon, and I'm just happy to hear a V8 engine just go, and just to switch off, because it's so much a part of your life and you love it. Of course, you love music, but sometimes I find I just need to take a break from it, and just so that I can come back to it fresh and feel rejuvenated and have some sort of, it's like, the Japanese talk about, a thing called the pause, it's the space between the beats, the pause between the words. We need that, we need, and you had 12 days down. How do you keep healthy, mate?
I don't know if I'm that healthy. My girlfriend will probably say that I don't eat that healthy, but I try to.
But mate, there's a lot of guys of your vintage who I know and who sadly have really gone by the wayside in terms.
Well, I've got to say, one thing that is a bit unusual for me in the dance music industry is I've never taken a drug.
Yeah, it's true.
Right, my whole life.
Yeah.
Never had any drug, a pill, a line, a coke.
Yeah.
It's just never been my thing.
Yeah.
And in fact, there's a handful of guys who are like Andy Van's the same.
Yeah.
Mr. Timothy.
Mm-hmm.
There's people that I've worked with for years who have been the same. We didn't really think it was that unusual until we met a lot of people.
Yeah.
And you're kind of like, okay, that's a little bit different.
Yeah.
But look, I drink. I drink alcohol whenever, party like anybody.
Yeah,
but I think you just can't get caught up in any, whatever it is, if you do it to an obsessive level.
Yeah.
And that thing about, you said, pause. I used to DJ 5 nights a week, 6 nights a week.
Yeah.
Never take a break. Always think if I don't DJ, I'll lose this gig.
Yeah.
Over time, you get a much better balance.
Yeah.
And there's times when I've been really hectic work, touring with ministry, obviously in Australia for, 2 months at a time, twice a year we used to do it. Yeah. Even though you're back home, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, you'd be back out Thursday night, Friday night, Saturday night for 2 months at a time. That would get hectic. now I think I've got a much better balance of, you know, I will, you know, I don't care that somebody wants to ring me now. If they want to ring me now and ask me a question about music, I'm just not going to answer the call.
Yeah.
Now, maybe I would have answered that phone call 15 years ago.
Yeah.
Because I thought everything had, you know.
Had to be done there and then.
But now I kind of like, I think that space that you get to be away from it means that when you're there, you're more focused, you do things better.
Yeah.
And I think it's the same with people who make music.
Yeah.
If you eat, sleep, and breathe it every single day just listening to music, you're going to kind of get lost in it all.
Totally.
It's when you take a step back, people making music, you know, turn it off. Come back the next morning and listen to it and decide if it's still any good. And you talk to producers and they always do that and they end up going, gee, I thought it was rocking because you're caught up in it.
Yeah.
And then you turn it off and you come back the next day and you turn it on and you're like, it's kind of shit. I'm going to start this again. So, you know, those same principles, I try to have a bit better balance now. And I'm probably better at being able to do that.
Yeah.
And I'm more confident in the advantage of it. And I'm less worried about the effect of it. Yeah. Because everything will still be there.
Yeah, yeah. No, that's true.
You know?
I think when you get,
like,
I don't know whether it's maybe through aging or wisdom or whatever, but again, I think when you can start letting go and being not so attached to things and not worrying about what people think and just being able to give yourself the space and working on your agenda and the way you want to do it without the concern of the outside world. At the very least, it makes the whole experience less stressful.
Yeah.
And to be creative, you know, this idea, and, you know, Tom Larkin, who talks a lot about, you know, mental health in the music industry, this misperception that you have to be a tortured artist, you have to be fucking, and no doubt some great art's been created from that place, and there's no doubt that has its place, but I think if you're happier and you're more at ease with things, I personally think I can be more creative, more productive, and more importantly, happy in the process of doing it, because it's all the process, right?
Yeah.
That's what it's about. So the making it, as I define it, is just the fact you're doing it.
I think also it's how you carry the negative stuff.
Oh, totally.
Like if you're carrying that, you know, if you're carrying it, like every time somebody criticizes a record that you've made or a DJ set or what, you know, like it's, you know, I remember I had a guy come up to me at the end of a set at One Love. You know, and that was a pretty successful club. You know, it ran for 9 years. Yeah. And there was a handful of DJs who were residents from day one to when it shut. And one night this guy came up and he ended the night and he goes, I just got to tell you, I stayed here all night and I thought your set was shit.
Okay.
I thought it was terrible.
Yeah. Why? Did he explain and how we do it better?
No, I didn't even ask why. Because I don't care.
Yeah.
Because you can't possibly keep everybody happy all the time.
That's true.
The only thing I said to him was, you should have decided quicker because you've wasted 6 hours
of your life
instead of only 1.
Yeah.
You know, like, why are you still here at the end of the night to tell me that?
Yeah.
You could, you know, like, personally, I'm more about, I'll tell somebody I like them. I'll tell somebody I like their music. I'll tell somebody I like how they DJ. And if I don't like them, or I don't like the music they make, I won't buy it. If I don't like how they talk to me or act towards me, I won't have a close friendship with them.
Yeah.
And if I don't like the music in a club, I'll go somewhere else. If I don't like the drinks in a club, I'll go somewhere else. Yeah. Because, you know, what's the point of trying to make them change what they do? That's what they do. If it's shit, it's shit, in my opinion.
Yeah, I agree.
So you've got to move on.
Everything's about choice, mate. At the end of the day, you've got a choice, and making no choice is a choice in itself. And
so if you carry that stuff, though, if you carry all that negative stuff, you know, if I really worried about what that one guy thought, I'm forgetting about the other 1,000 people that were there that night that potentially had a good time.
Yeah.
So you've just got to. I'm very much about focusing on the positives about things.
Yeah.
And I guess that's my philosophy about stuff is focus on the positive stuff. Focus on the good things, the good people in your life, the people that help you get somewhere, and the people that are kind of negative or the people that want to say I hate this or I hate that. It's kind of like, you know what, you go and hate over there because. You know, there's always going to be stacks of stuff people don't like.
Yeah, and people they're just cunts. That's as simple as that. They'll just wake up and no, I mean there are people that are just serial trollers. There's no necessarily the reason. They're just hating on the world, and so you know, and and I feel sorry for people like that. I really do.
And I think that's it's a self-esteem thing.
Oh, totally.
That people have got to be able to brush that stuff off. And you can listen to 100 people tell you you're bad, but if one of those people is somebody that you really trust, then you've got to be willing to take that on board. And understand the difference between, if you give me some advice about mastering, I've got to understand that that's coming from a valid place. And if the guy over here gives me the same advice and they haven't done any mastering, I'm going to blow that off. And yet sometimes people forget that simple thing, that there's people you trust and whose opinions are valid. And you need those people to give you feedback and be honest. But at the same time, somebody random commenting on a song or saying something like that guy come up to the end of the night, it's kind of like I don't worry about that.
There's no point. And again, I just find it hilarious people when they invest. If someone's going to invest that much time and energy just to be able to say one thing to 6 hours of their life, it's funny. It's funny, John.
Well, I did have a laugh.
You have to.
I did laugh, and I just said, "Man, couldn't you see the exit sign?" Like,
Change channels, mate. Change channels. How are we going for time, guys? Just out of curiosity, because
it's 8:07, but we'd start like 10 minutes later.
All right. Well, if that's the case, we're sort of getting close towards.
There is a guy. Les Toff asked early on.
Go, Les.
Who you look up to, John? Or who did you look up to? Who said?
Look, Les was a guy that helped. Was always really positive about stuff. Les is quite a legendary Melbourne DJ, been around for a long time. He was always pretty positive when he crossed paths with us, and that was always a good thing. I mean, I guess on a technical level, I used to look up to. Me and Andy both used to really like what Pee Wee Ferris used to do as a DJ. And obviously we used to love what Carl Cox did because 3 or 4 decks. So as early influences, I guess technically those two guys and the guy Anders I told you about. But I guess more once I met Carl, then he's probably the guy that I think, is quite inspiring from a technical just DJ angle. But also he's a really nice guy. And, I personally have a high value for people who are, down to earth and can be friendly and, not a tosser, basically.
It's not that hard, John Course.
So I think Carl's probably, from a DJ level. I mean, there's lots of guys who I like. Nick Fanciulli's a great guy and a great DJ. Phil Kay, obviously everyone who knows him, he's a great guy, very good DJ, but probably, I guess, Carl. Carl Cox would be the guy that, creatively, as a person, I think, he's got it right.
Beautiful. Well, we're going to have to wind it up here, John.
No problem.
Mate, it's been so good to see you. This is great, mate. Like, I knew it would be a great conversation because, again, I just wanted people to hear your story, man. And I know you can't condense 24, 5 fucking years or 30-year career in an hour and a bit. But it's just we've got to get you back again. We're going to see you at that event on the 6th, and again, I think if any kids particularly are looking out there, like we talked before about the whole getting into social media. This is a chance where kids can come up who normally would love to contact you, knowing that you've got your social media. We'll put John's socials up.
Yes.
Yeah, please. That'd be great. So they can, opportunity to meet people face to face and where they know you're there specifically to listen and take questions and impart your views on things. And I mean, I know it's happened to me, mate, but I'm sure it's happened to you. When you're a kid and you come across someone that you've admired and they set a really good impression on you and they give a genuine good word or some bit of advice that always just sticks with you and creates a pivotal moment in your life. Like you can never underestimate that brief moment that you can impart on a kid, man. So again, mate, I really appreciate taking time out today.
In, mate. It's good to have a chat.
Very good, mate. We'll do it again really soon, and we'll see you on August 6th. So,
yes.
So we'll put John's socials up, and that's about it. So, thanks very much for watching us, guys. It's It was really fun. I really enjoyed it. I love doing this podcast. It's just the fucking best fucking fun. It really is. So thanks to those of you who watched and contributed. And yeah, we'll get out here. And as I always say, be nice to each other, but more importantly, be nice to yourselves. I love you fucks. Have yourselves a good night, and we'll talk to you real soon. All right, catch ya.
Cheers.
Yay.